The promise Olivia Carter's fingers trembled against the polished wood of her violin as she stood in the wings of Mercer Audition Hall. 26 years old with dreams larger than her bank account, she had exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds to convince the New York Philharmonic Selection Committee that she deserved one of their coveted chair positions. Contestant number 43, the stage manager called, not bothering to look up from his clipboard. Olivia took a deep breath, centering herself as she had practiced countless times. This audition represented everything: vindication for the childhood sacrifices, justification for her mountains of student debt, proof that her mother's skepticism about a music career had been unwarranted. She stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. The selection committee sat in darkness. 5 shadowy figures whose expressions she couldn't read. Olivia positioned her violin, nodded to the accompanist, and began the first movement of the Sibelius Violin Concerto, a piece that normally flowed through her like her own heartbeat. For 16 perfect bars, Olivia disappeared into the music, her bow dancing across the strings with the precision and passion she had honed through years of relentless practice. Then disaster struck. A small mistake, an errant finger placement sent her spiraling. Suddenly her chest tightened. Her vision narrowed. The familiar symptoms of panic gripped her, strangling the music before it could fully breathe. She forced herself to continue, but her fingers now felt like foreign objects. Notes that had flowed effortlessly in practice now emerged hesitant and strained. By the time she finished, sweat beaded her forehead and she knew with crushing certainty that she had failed. "Thank you, Miss Carter," a male voice called from the darkness. "We'll be in touch," the standard rejection phrase. Olivia nodded stiffly, fighting back tears as she exited stage left. In the empty corridor outside the audition hall, she finally allowed herself to collapse onto a bench, violin case clutched to her chest like a shield. Technically flawless until the panic set in. A deep voice observed from the end of the hallway. Olivia looked up to find a tall figure approaching. As he stepped into the light, she recognized him immediately. Marcus Reed, the legendary music producer whose reputation for discovering extraordinary talent was matched only by his notoriety for exacting standards and brutal honesty. "What makes a violinist of your caliber freeze like that?" he asked, stopping a respectful distance away. Olivia straightened her shoulders defensively. "I don't recall asking for your assessment, Mr. Reed." A smile touched the corner of his mouth, softening his otherwise serious expression. At 41, Marcus Reed carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to commanding rooms. His dark hair was cut short and precise, with dignified silver at the temples. He wore a simple black suit that Olivia suspected cost more than 3 months of her rent. "Fair enough," he conceded. "But since you've just played for an audience of 5 who won't appreciate what they heard, I thought you might be interested in the opinion of someone who did." Olivia sighed, too drained to maintain her defenses. "And what exactly did you hear?" Extraordinary potential suffocating under equally extraordinary anxiety. He moved closer, sitting at the opposite end of the bench. "You played those opening bars like you were born with that violin in your hands." "What happened?" "Stage fright happened," Olivia admitted, absently tracing the wood grain pattern on her violin case. "It's been my constant companion since childhood. Usually I can manage it, but today mattered too much." Marcus finished for her. She nodded, surprised by his perception. "I'm looking for a session violinist for Reed Productions," he said after a thoughtful pause. "Someone who can bring authentic classical training to contemporary projects. Studio work, no audiences. Just you, the music, and a microphone." Olivia blinked, uncertain she had heard correctly. Reed Productions was responsible for some of the most innovative music of the past decade, crossing boundaries between classical, jazz, and popular genres. "Why would you offer that to someone who just had a panic attack on stage?" she asked suspiciously. "Because what I heard in those 16 perfect bars was rare," Marcus answered simply. "The technique can be found in many violinists, but that emotional connection, that's something I can't teach." He reached into his jacket pocket and produced a business card. "Come to this address tomorrow at 10 if you're interested. If not, I wish you luck with your next audition." Olivia took the card, studying the embossed lettering. Is this some kind of joke? "I don't joke about music, Miss Carter." Marcus stood, straightening his jacket with a practiced motion. "One question before I go. Why do you play?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that since she was a child. Because when it's right, when everything connects, it's the only time I feel completely myself, she answered honestly. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Recognition, perhaps. That's why I produce, he said quietly. 10 o'clock tomorrow. The door will be open either way. After he left, Olivia remained on the bench, his card between her fingers. Common sense told her to be suspicious of unexpected offers from famous producers. Yet something about Marcus Reed's assessment had struck her as genuine. He had seen through her failure to the musician she truly was. When Olivia arrived at her tiny apartment in Astoria later that evening, reality reasserted itself. The past due rent notice on her door, the dwindling bank account that couldn't sustain another month of auditions and rejections, the concerned voicemail from her roommate Emma about whether she could cover utilities this month. She placed Marcus's card on her small kitchen counter and stared at it while heating leftover pasta. Even if his offer was legitimate, working closely with someone like Marcus Reed, known for his perfectionism and demanding nature, would be challenging. His reputation in the industry was complicated. Some called him a genius, others impossible. At midnight, after hours of research and deliberation, Olivia made her decision. She couldn't afford to pass up this opportunity, regardless of her misgivings about Marcus Reed's intentions or methods. The Reed Productions building occupied a renovated warehouse in Brooklyn's Dumbo district. Industrial on the outside, Olivia discovered a state-of-the-art recording facility within. The reception area featured exposed brick walls adorned with platinum records and artistic black and white photographs of musicians caught in moments of creative intensity. Olivia Carter, a young woman with bright blue hair, greeted her. I'm Zoe, studio manager. Marcus is expecting you. Zoe led her through a labyrinth of corridors to a large recording space where instruments of all varieties were arranged in careful groups. Floor-to-ceiling windows separated this area from a control room, filled with equipment whose complexity made Olivia's head spin. Marcus sat at a sprawling console, headphones around his neck, focused intently on the computer screens before him. When Zoe cleared her throat, he looked up, his expression unreadable as he studied Olivia. You came, he observed, removing his headphones completely. I'm still not entirely sure why I did, Olivia replied honestly. Marcus smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his serious face. Honesty. Good, we'll need that. He gestured toward a chair beside him. Shall we discuss what this would entail? For the next hour, Marcus outlined his proposal. Reed Productions needed a violinist who could bring classical sensibility to contemporary projects. The position would involve studio sessions, collaboration with artists across genres, and potential soundtrack work for film and television. The salary he mentioned made Olivia's eyes widen. 3 times what she had made teaching violin lessons and waiting tables. What's the catch? She asked when he finished. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Skepticism. Also good. Experience has taught me that when something seems too good to be true, it usually is, Olivia explained. Fair enough. Marcus leaned back in his chair. The catch is that I expect excellence. I'll push you beyond what you think you're capable of. There will be long hours, demanding sessions, and moments when you'll probably hate me. He paused. But if you trust my process, I believe you'll create the best music of your life. Olivia considered his words carefully. And the panic attacks? We'll work through them, Marcus said with surprising gentleness. Stage fright is often about fear of judgment. In the studio, it's just about the music. No audience, no committees, no arbitrary standards. Just authentic expression. Something in his tone made Olivia believe he understood more than he was saying. I need to know one more thing, she said, meeting his gaze directly. Why me? There are countless violinists in New York without anxiety issues. Marcus studied her for a long moment before answering. Because when you played those 16 perfect bars yesterday, you weren't just performing the Sibelius, you were living it. That connection is rare, Olivia. Technique can be perfected with practice, but that emotional conduit, that's either there or it isn't. His words resonated with something deep inside her. For years, teachers had praised her technical skills while pushing her to play from the heart. What they didn't understand was that playing from the heart was precisely what terrified her. Exposing her innermost self through music made her feel unbearably vulnerable. I should warn you, Olivia said quietly, I don't trust easily. My parents had a complicated divorce. Music was the only stable thing in my life. And now you're afraid to fully surrender to it. Marcus observed with unexpected perception, afraid that if you pour yourself completely into the music and still fail, there will be nothing left. Olivia felt suddenly exposed, as if Marcus had somehow read pages of her journal. How could you possibly know that? Because music has always been both sanctuary and battlefield for many of us, he replied, something personal flickering in his expression before disappearing behind his professional mask. After a moment's consideration, Marcus stood and extended his hand. I propose a 6-month contract to start. If either of us feels it isn't working, we part ways amicably. Olivia hesitated before accepting his handshake. His palm was warm against hers, the contact brief but somehow significant. All right, Mr. Reed. Marcus, he corrected. Marcus, she amended. I accept your offer. Something shifted in the air between them, a contract more meaningful than the paper one his lawyers would draw up. One last thing, Marcus said, still holding her gaze. I can see you've been hurt, not just by stage fright or failed auditions, something deeper. He released her hand and stepped back slightly. I promise you this, Olivia Carter. Whatever happens with our professional relationship, I will protect your heart. Music demands vulnerability, but that doesn't mean you have to be wounded in the process. The unexpected promise caught her off guard. In the harsh world of professional music, protection was rarely offered and even more rarely meant. That's an unusual guarantee for a business arrangement, Olivia said carefully. Perhaps. Marcus's expression remained serious, but in my experience, the best music comes when artists feel safe enough to be truly vulnerable. Fear and creativity cannot coexist. As Olivia left the studio that afternoon with a contract to review and a start date for the following Monday, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped onto a path that would change everything. Marcus Reed's promise echoed in her mind, to protect her heart while asking her to bare her soul through music. It seemed an impossible balance, yet something about his quiet confidence made her want to believe him. What she couldn't know then was how thoroughly that promise would be tested, or how one night would transform both their lives in ways neither could imagine. Crescendo Olivia's first month at Reed Productions tested every aspect of her musical ability. Marcus was demanding but fair, pushing her beyond her comfort zone while creating a safe environment for her to experiment. Music isn't just about perfect notes, he reminded her during a difficult session. It's about expressing what can't be said with words. Gradually, Olivia's confidence grew. Her violin became an extension of herself again, not an instrument of anxiety. Marcus recognized her progress, assigning her increasingly important projects. One evening, as they worked late refining a film score, Olivia noticed Marcus massaging his temples. Headache? She asked. Anniversary of my brother's death, he admitted quietly. Car accident 12 years ago today. I was driving. The revelation stunned Olivia. Suddenly his promise to protect her made more sense. He carried his own wounds. Is that why you became a producer instead of performing? She asked gently. Marcus nodded. After David died, I couldn't bear the spotlight. In the studio, I could still create without being seen. This shared vulnerability marked a turning point in their relationship. Though Marcus maintained professional boundaries, their connection deepened through music and mutual understanding. 6 months later, Olivia recorded a violin solo for platinum-selling artist Jasmine Winters. Her performance was so moving that Jasmine insisted on crediting her prominently. That night, at the album's wrap party, Olivia realized how far she'd come under Marcus's guidance. You did that, Marcus said, appearing beside her with sparkling water. I just created the space. As they stood together watching the celebration, Olivia felt something shift between them, a current of possibility neither acknowledged but both increasingly felt. The night the industry gala celebrating Jasmine's album release was held at the Metropolitan Museum's Temple of Dender. Olivia wore a midnight blue gown that complemented the vintage, silver jewelry Marcus had given her as a professional gift. For your first major credit, he'd explained. You deserve this recognition, Marcus told her as they entered the gala. Your violin work made that album extraordinary. Throughout the evening, industry professionals approached Olivia with compliments and opportunities. Marcus watched proudly from a distance, never interfering but always present if she needed support. As the night progressed, the atmosphere shifted when Victoria Lang, Marcus's former business partner, approached them. Marcus Reed playing mentor again. Victoria observed with calculated sweetness. Olivia, has he told you about Sophie Carver? Victoria, don't, Marcus warned, tension evident in his voice. Sophie was a brilliant pianist, Victoria continued, ignoring him. Until she and Marcus had a falling out. Suddenly, no studio would work with her. Curious coincidence. Olivia looked at Marcus, whose expression had turned to stone. Is that true? We should discuss this privately, he said quietly. In the museum's empty Egyptian wing, Marcus finally spoke. Sophie and I were involved professionally and personally. When it ended badly, I did blacklist her. It was the worst mistake of my life, one I've spent years trying to make right. You promised to protect me, Olivia whispered, but you've destroyed others. I was a different person then, Marcus insisted. Working with you has reminded me why I started in music. The raw honesty in his expression broke something open between them. Olivia stepped forward impulsively, her hands finding his face. Their first kiss was tentative, then desperate, crossing a line both had carefully maintained. I can't lose you, Marcus whispered against her hair. As they drove home through a sudden rainstorm, still processing what had happened between them, their conversation grew intense. How can I trust this? Olivia demanded. How do I know you won't hurt me like Sophie? Because Marcus began, then suddenly shouted, Olivia! Headlights flooded the car as a truck skidded across the rain-slicked road. Marcus wrenched the steering wheel, attempting to avoid impact. The crash was deafening. Metal tearing, glass shattering. Olivia felt a searing pain in her left arm before darkness claimed her. The last thing she saw was Marcus redissonance. Olivia woke in the hospital to devastating news. Severe nerve damage to her left hand. The doctor's words echoed mercilessly. We're not sure if you'll regain full dexterity. Marcus, who had suffered a concussion and broken ribs, appeared in her doorway looking haunted. This is my fault, he said, voice hollow. The truck crossed the divider, Olivia replied mechanically. Not your fault, but fault wasn't the issue. Her violin career potentially finished. Their relationship, complicated by revelations and now this tragedy. It was too much. I need time, she told him. Alone. For weeks, Olivia pushed through grueling physical therapy while rejecting Marcus's attempts to contact her. Emma, her roommate, reported that flowers arrived daily at their apartment, along with cards Marcus had written himself. He cares about you, Emma insisted. He promised to protect my heart. Olivia replied bitterly. Look how that turned out. What Olivia didn't know was that Marcus had arranged and paid for the top neurological specialists in the country to consult on her case. He had established a foundation for musicians with injuries, inspired by her situation. He had sold his Manhattan penthouse to focus entirely on developing adaptive music technology. 3 months after the accident, Olivia's physical therapist mentioned an experimental program for injured musicians. It's fully funded, Dr. Bennett explained. They're developing technology that could help you play again, differently but effectively. When Olivia discovered Marcus was behind the program, she was conflicted. His help felt like both salvation and reminder of all she'd lost. That night, Olivia attempted to play her violin for the first time since the accident. The sounds that emerged were broken, painful, like her heart. Yet within the discord, she recognized something important, even damaged. Music remained her truest voice. The next morning, she called the number she'd memorized but never used. I'm ready to talk, she told Marcus, aching desperately across the wreckage toward her, blood streaming resolution. They met at a quiet cafe near the Brooklyn waterfront. Marcus looked different, thinner, his designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, his usual confidence tempered by uncertainty. I never intended, he began. I know, Olivia interrupted. Neither of us intended any of this. For 2 hours, they talked honestly about everything. Victoria's revelations, the kiss, the accident, the aftermath. No more promises or protections, just truth. I've been developing something, Marcus finally said, pulling out a tablet. Adaptive technology that translates minimal finger movement into full musical expression. He showed her videos of the prototype, a modified violin that could create complex sounds from simple gestures. Why would you do this? Olivia asked, genuinely moved. Because music is your voice, Marcus replied simply. I couldn't bear the thought of you losing that. 2 weeks later, Olivia visited Reed Productions for the first time since the accident. The building had been partially converted into a research facility where engineers and musicians collaborated on adaptive instruments. When Marcus placed the prototype violin in her hands, Olivia felt both grief and possibility. Her damaged hand couldn't execute the intricate movements of traditional playing. But this instrument responded to different techniques. It won't be the same, Marcus acknowledged, but it could be something new. As Olivia drew the bow across the strings, the sound that emerged wasn't perfect, but it was undeniably music. Her music, transformed but not diminished. "I can't promise to protect your heart anymore," Marcus said quietly as she played. "That was arrogant of me. Hearts aren't meant to be protected, they're meant to be risked." Olivia lowered the violin, meeting his gaze. "I don't need protection. I need partnership. Someone who understands that some things are worth the risk." 1 year later, Olivia performed publicly for the first time since the accident, not with a traditional violin, but with the adaptive instrument that had evolved through their collaboration. The audience at Lincoln Center included musicians with various disabilities who had benefited from the technology Marcus had developed with her in mind. Backstage after her standing ovation, Marcus waited with quiet pride. "You promised to protect my heart," Olivia said, taking his hand. "Instead, you helped me rebuild it, stronger, more resilient, capable of making different but beautiful music." "And you," Marcus replied, drawing her close, "taught me that some promises are meant to be broken for greater ones to take their place." As they left the concert hall together, both understood that the night that had changed everything had not been the accident, but the moment they had first truly seen each other, two wounded artists finding healing through the very music that had both saved and scarred them. Some promises couldn't be kept, but others, deeper ones born of shared pain and healing, would endure long after the music faded.